This week on Behind the Story, we talk about Jesus Christ, the Word of God, needing to be in the Word, and also something called the future of the American church.
Let's talk about that. Welcome back to Behind the Story. We are in chapter 26. The boy Jesus, age 12, at the temple. The only story that we have about his childhood, between his birth and his ministry.
30 years old.
Pastor Abel, tell us about your sermon in a nutshell.
Sermon in a nutshell.
A nutshell.
A nutshell,
not four.
Not four nutshells. He thinks that my nutshell rounds are too long. So I'll try to keep it as short as possible. This is the Word of God.
4 right now.
The Word of God. See, we should not despise the Word of God or preaching in the Word, but gladly hear and learn it.
That's
so
true.
I should probably, nutshell round should be 2 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
Sermon in a nutshell. Jesus has been with his parents in the Passover. They're going back to their hometown. They, after a day, discover that Jesus isn't there, so they come back. They're searching for him. 5 days later, they find Jesus in the temple, and the key to it all of Luke chapter 2, it's verse 49, where Jesus turns to his mom and dad who are upset, and he says, "Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" So again, that language of referring to God as his Father was absolutely
huge.
New, crazy, mind-blowing, offensive, actually, to call. You couldn't even say Yahweh, that sort of thing. But there, Jesus is disclosing who he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's the Son of the Father. He's the Son of God. And we really have to wrestle with what we believe about that. And if we do believe he's the Son of God, how are we going to, how is that going to affect our lives? Kind of point number one. Point number two, where he says, the emphasis there is, did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?
Mm-hmm.
And that in the Greek is a very strong language. It speaks of absolute necessity. I have to be here. I must be here. It's necessary that I'm here. Because even at 12, Jesus knew what he was sent to the world to do. He knew what he was called to do. The cross was always before him. He knew that. The physical suffering, but the spiritual suffering, that he knew that he was going to lose his Father, covered in our sin, your sin, my sin, the sin of the world on himself. He loses the Father. My God, why have you forsaken me? Mm-hmm. And just how painful that was. That infinite love was lost. Infinite passion and intimacy cut off. The sorrow of that was always before him, even at 12 and even before. He lived with the shadow of the future sorrow so that we can live with the light of the future joy. Mm-hmm. But so he had to be in the house. He had to draw strength from the Father. He had to draw strength from the Word. He had to draw strength from being as close to his Father as he possibly could because he knew what was coming. Mm-hmm. And that's my sermon.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
So there's two pieces, Father's house, and it is necessary.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about why Jesus would be in the temple some more. Why was it necessary? You touched on that, but taking half a step back, John calls Jesus the Word.
John 1.
The Word was with God in the beginning. The Word was God. And you made this point that was really kind of thought-provoking for me about why would it be so important for the Word of God, Jesus, to be spending time in the Word of God if he is God? Why would Jesus need to learn to grow? And then you said, for that matter, how much more true is that for us if it's true for Jesus?
And there's great mystery there still for me. I mean, in the beginning was the Word was God, etc., as you just said. And it's pretty clear he's seeking out rabbis. He's seeking out people to instruct him in the Word or to learn from them. And he's obviously, they're learning from him. They're amazed at his teaching and his words and his wisdom at a young age. And yet, if the Word of God, Christ, felt the need to seek out instruction from the Word, the Scriptures, how much more do we need to do so? And it didn't make, I think maybe on Saturday night I touched on this point, but not on Sunday, was there's a pastor theologian named John Piper, and he was a professor for many years and pastor for many years, recently retired, and he said, it's a pretty condemning statistic, and this is his opinion, but he said of all the students he had and all the people in his church, there was probably 1 in 10. 1 in 10 people who really, really wanted to know God more. The follow-up question is, and you might be thinking as you watch this video, do you really want to know more about God, to know him more and to grow in that relationship? If so, then what are you doing about it? What are we doing about it? Are we actively seeking to know him more, study him more, read books, read the word itself, be in church, be in Bible studies, be in small groups, be whatever it is? I mean, how desirous are we really to know God, to understand him more, and to grow in our relationship with him?
Yeah.
And I know, you look at my own life, ups and downs and fits and starts, even as a pastor, the struggle. So when I preach about this, I'm preaching to myself. How much do I really want to know more about God, or am I more interested in Netflix binge watching? You know, you know what I mean? I mean, the time that I spend listening to a podcast or watching television shows or whatever it is, and some of that's just to, just take a break from the brain going. But how much time do we really spend?
Because it's not a matter of time; it's a matter of priority.
And we've talked some about that. I know there's a video about the different spaces we have in the place and the boulder and all that.
So I think about that. There's a human element to that says, earthly relationships. You meet somebody and you kind of say, you get to kind of a level where you say, I know about as much about that person as I'll know. Whether we are kind of cognitively or consciously thinking about that or not. I need to ask questions to get to know them.
Like lightning round questions.
Yeah, like lightning round. If that's a spouse, if that's a friend, if that's just assumptions that you make about them, I kind of know who they are. I think we can do the same thing with Jesus, with the Trinity, and say, well, I kind of have reached a certain level of cognitive awareness of how sin and grace works and basic stories in the scriptures, and
I'm good.
And I think we can kind of settle spiritually and say, this is as good as it will get. About as much as I know Jesus, if we can quantify that now, is as much as I'll probably ever know, and kind of settle in there. So it works on human relationships with transfers over spiritual.
Well, and picking up on the human relationships, like, if you're married to your wife, your spouse, and, after a year or so into the relationship, you're like, I'm good. We don't need to go on dates anymore. We don't need to have conversations.
Yeah, all that new warm fuzzies.
We're good. I know where you were born and how you lived, and I know kind of your basic personality. But imagine never wanting to go on a date with your spouse, get away for the weekend, spend time with them. That's the imagery of the Bible is we're the bride and he's the groom. The church is the bride and all that kind of stuff. He literally says in his word, you need to spend a day. Set aside a day, a weekly rhythm of
Sabbath rest,
of going on a date with me, so to speak. Getting to know me more and investing in me.
Not because Jesus is our boyfriend.
No, I don't mean it that way.
About that, but and whether we're married or we're single or or widowed or whatever, that's a reality that's accessible for all of us. That kind of union with Jesus.
Anytime we want to know someone more and grow in a relationship, it takes time.
Yeah,
we need to spend time.
Pastor Abel, our viewers would like to know more about you.
In a certain round that we call the lightning round.
There are several cards here.
That's quite a presumption that they actually want to know more about me, but it's either what I know about something theological or something personal about myself. This one has a lot of writing on it. Let's just get rid of this one.
Okay.
All right, and the question is, all right, it's just a light question. What do you see in store for the future of the American church?
Ready? Go.
What do I see in store for the future of the American church or the Western church? I look to England. I look to what's happened to the church in Europe to see probably where the church is going in this country as a post-Christian culture, a post-Christian age. I see, in many ways, declining church membership. People who maybe were on the margins, taking a poll, are you a Christian? Oh, yeah, I'm a Christian. But now it's no longer, culturally a positive thing, maybe, to be a Christian. And so, in many ways, maybe the number of true, actual Christians or followers of Christ is maybe not diminishing, but maybe those who claim to be, or for whatever reason want to be seen as a Christian, that's diminishing. So on the sort of positive side. But I think we're looking at shifting away from maybe a 1950s model of church, which is open the doors and people come, where a church where people come to be served. We're always going to serve our members here, always going to serve them and their families. But how do we also shift and see the need for real training and equipping and preparing our people to get out there and be humble but bold, and to disciple and to learn. Like, we are working on that right now. There are ways that you can grow, you can learn more, you can be equipped more, and I think that's kind of where God is calling not just our congregation, but this is a movement throughout the American church, and we're also looking to Europe and to England for that, because churches.
There's been a resurgence in pockets.
A resurgence of growth in the gospel and the spreading of the gospel in England and other places, and church growth and planting new churches in Europe. That is actually happening, and we're looking to some of that model as we look at what the future has in store for us. We can live in fear. We can be afraid. All this, the culture is changing. This is changing. We can watch too much news, but we always need to remember that Christ is on the throne.
Yeah.
Christ is in charge.
It's His kingdom.
And in many ways, not only looking to England, but we're looking back to the book of Acts. We're looking to the first century church. Many ways, our culture is becoming almost very similar to the culture that the gospel was born into. And of course, it spread and grew person by person, not by sword, not by military might, but by the power of love, of lives worth imitating, as we say, and just spreading the love of Christ. I see challenges, but I see Christ equipping us and growing us through those challenges and becoming even stronger as we stand even firmer. As the culture gets darker, I believe the church will shine brighter in the darkness.
And that really begins, with each one of us.
That's right.
Yeah, like we talked about in this video, to know Jesus more. For the church to be different, we've got to be different.
That's right. And it starts, as we were just talking right before this video, it's you and me, our families, as we learn how to become better followers of Christ, to help learn and equip you as members of our Father, or wherever you might be watching this video or listening to this podcast. So.
Thanks for checking in this week. We'll be in chapter 27.
Just a simple little question. I was expecting, what's your favorite food, or something.
High challenge.
High challenge.
We'll be in chapter 27 next week. The baptism of Jesus.
Yeah, why was he baptized? Underway. Why did Jesus need to be baptized?
Why did he have to be in the temple?
Yeah. And is it the same type of baptism as our baptism?
What?
A lot of questions.
Yeah. So we'll hope to see you. Have you join us. Feel free to leave a comment down below and participate in the conversation. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.
And if, as Christians, we need to wrestle with, if we do believe he's the Son of God and what he's done for us, then what is that?
I'm sorry. I need to give you 3 nutshells. I was thinking of a joke and it was funny in my head, and then I laughed at my own joke. Nutshell. Nutshell, Abel. Give me a nutshell.
You know what?